No. No, it's not going online. Hello, Ian. How are you doing? Are you okay? It's good. We'll go on in a second, literally.
Yeah, Brock, Sam, you okay?
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Okay, we're up to.
Ross Sound.
Okay, I put in the wrong number. We're up to Daf 6, Daf Design. I'm going to put it on Daf 17. We're up to 5 lines from the top. We're up to Psochim, Daf Design, and Mudala, 5 lines from the top. V'sova Rabbaloso. We're discussing the topic of liquids. We mentioned yesterday that for something to get tummy and to transmit tumor, it has to be either a keli or a food. A clod of earth doesn't catch tumor and doesn't spread tumor. The question is, what about liquids? And there's a double question over here. Question number 1, actually 3 questions. 3 questions you can ask about liquids. Can liquids catch tumor? If they do catch tumor, can they spread tumor? And will Chazal forbid it even if minat Torah not? So these are the 3 questions we can ask. And we're going to see many shittas about this. In fact, for the rest of the day and future days, we're going to be discussing this one question, the liquid of tumor. Can liquid become tummy? And there's a shitta that even if liquid can become tummy, even if liquid can become tummy midrabanon, they're only said in a normal place. But in the Beis Hamikdash, they made a kula in the Beis Hamikdash. We always try to be meikon. We don't increase tumor in the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, perhaps the Beis Hamikdash, it never can become tummy. Now, there's a question you should all be jumping up and down and asking, and you're going to be kicking yourself. I hear the argument, but no, you don't want to create tumor in the Beis Hamikdash. There's a much stronger question. We should all be shouting. Kaya. No, it's mashka makabel tumor, spread tumor. Can it be kabel tumor, spread tumor? In Mitzvah Hashem, in a few days' time, we're going to be celebrating the Yom Tov of Hanukkah. Everybody, child knows. Tommy oil. Why should we shouting this question? It's an unbelievable question. We're going to have a shitta after shitta that holds that liquids that is Hamikdash never can become tummy. They'll never ever become tummy. Any liquid Beis Hamikdash will never become tummy. No, just Beis Hamikdash. No, what the Gemara says that became tummy, and because we became tummy, we had to look for more oil. So we said, if you hold a liquid never becomes tummy, it only becomes tummy midrabanon. So in the Beis Hamikdash, they didn't want this to be tummy in the Beis Hamikdash. If they didn't want this to be tummy in the Beis Hamikdash, we more make us. So Ben asked, why should we more make a Beis Hamikdash? The answer is we don't want the Beis Hamikdash. Kind of question Shai you would ask. You're working as a Sam Mashkin this week. Hopefully you have better dreams. No, it's much worse. It's much worse. There's a shitta, we're going to come across a shitta that there's no such thing as tumor by liquids. No such thing as tumor. There's no such thing. They'll never become tummy. If they can never become tummy, why in the world do we have Hanukkah? It's an unbelievable question. What? All mashkin. No, even the future word doesn't help you because there's a shitta. There is a shitta that only blood and water. But there's another shitta that oil, everything doesn't become tummy. Gershi, what would you say? You've done the Gemara. Why are you celebrating Hanukkah? No, but the question is, but one wasn't broken, so it was toy, but all the rest was tummy. How can it become tummy? So what? Liquid can't become tummy.
No, unless it's got tummy inside it.
Also not. Has to be bottle.
No, but surely the volume touched the oil. They opened the seals.
Yes.
Therefore, it became tummy.
Yeah, but we're having a shitta now that liquid can never become tummy. Liquid does not become tummy. It's like okay, really, I've jumped the gun a bit because we haven't only just started the Gemara of the liquids yesterday. I thought you'd be worrying about it all night. That's why. But Eliashiv asks the question. No, that's true. If it can become tummy, so if it's sealed, So they never touch it and become tummy. He says two answers. One answer is that made it into avodah oil, and that's nothing to do with tumah v'tara per se. It's to do with issa v'heta, and therefore they made it into oil which is being used for avodah zarah, and that was the problem, not because of normal tumah v'tara. And this is another piece of logic. No, tumah. It's a tumah d'rabbanon tumah avodah zarah. I don't go too far into this, but he says a very interesting thing. Let's go very interesting. Okay, we'll haven't started the Gemara. I just say a very interesting thing. It says the Yevonim came and they breached the walls and they took over the Beis Hamikdash. When they did that, it lost the kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash. Once it lost the kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash, so liquids can become tamei. But from here we learn a murdik and the that you see the Beis Hamikdash a special kedusha. I said it over this morning to somebody. He said, you always like to find some Musa aspect. But it's true that when there was Beis Hamikdash standing, there's no such thing as tumah. But once the Yevonim took it over, so that they could create tumah. So if a person takes his shul, in his shul, so loses the koach of his shul, so maybe the tefillahs won't have the same koach. Okay, well, we're going to be learning now for the rest of today and other days, the shaila about liquids. And there are three questions, and there's very lot of shittas. To remember all the shittas, it requires tremendous amount of clarity. One question is, can they become tummy? Another question is, can they spread tumah? And the third question is, what do the chachamim say? Because the first two questions is deraisas. What about derabbanos? Now, yesterday we had a three-way machlokes regarding spreading tumah. What was the three-way machlokes regarding spreading tumah without looking inside? What was the three-way machlokes? Three shittas. One man that holds that liquid cannot spread tumah minater. Therefore, if it's a suffix, it's always the kula softer on the kula. One man that holds that it can spread tumah minater. One says it's a chilek between kelim and oichel. It can spread tumah. And the Gemara actually later already discusses it. Rashi mentions it because the word pasuk says yitmo, and the question is, do you read it yitmo as it becomes tumah, yatame can spread tumah? Okay. But all three seem to agree about one thing. What do they all agree? Is that, very good, that liquid can become tumah. The only question is, can liquid spread tumah? And the Gemara challenges this assumption. And the Gemara says, who said such a thing? Who said liquid can become tumah? On the contrary, one of those three opinions which you just quoted in this three-way machlokes regarding spreading tumah actually holds that liquids can't become tumah at all. And if liquids can't become tumah at all, so then obviously they can't spread tumah. So it's a contradiction of Vestira. We're up to 5 lines from the top of the Zayin Amudal. That liquid could ever become tumah, and therefore the question now is, can they spread tumah or not? Which we mentioned before. Ablaza said, like for a mayor, that they can't spread tumah in that term, but they can catch tumah. But how can he even say such a thing? The halacha is, liquids can never become tummy. I should have said this more inside. This is announced. He got even more excited about the story of Hanukkah. That the liquids can never become tummy. Teda says, I'll prove it to you that liquids will never become tummy. Yosef ben Yoezer gave us two witnesses, two statements, not witnesses. He testified to two halachas, two testaments. And Al Kamsa is a kind of locust. If you ever go to the shop and they sell you Al Kamsa, and you'll have a question, am I allowed to eat it or not? So he gave a testimony, Dochen, that it is mutter to be eaten. So if you find a locust called Al Kamsa, then you're allowed to eat it. Another testimony, Ba'al Mashkin Beis Mitbechaya, the liquids in the slaughterhouses of the area of Beis Mitbechaya, the Samikdash, Dochen, that they are pure. Meaning all the liquids there. Now, which liquids would you normally find in the slaughter place of the basement? What? Blood. Very good. Blood is the main liquid. Those what other liquids? Water. Just blood and water. So he held all blood and water in the basement v'chaim of the Beis Hamikdash was toy. Meaning that even if a dead person touched it, can you imagine? Even if a dead person, so the Chas Shalom Kohen would drop dead in the Beis Hamikdash, the liquid would be toy. So again, we had yesterday machlokas as to whether liquids can spread to a three-way machlokas. One of their opinions was Rabbi Loza that said he can catch to Minat only spread to Rabbanon. Yet in the next brisa, Rabbi Loza, another brisa, Rabbi Loza tells us that they can never become Tomei, which is a contradiction. So what says it? Honichel Shmuel, we have machlokas Rav and Shmuel in the shitta of Yosef and Yoezer. So Yosef and Yoezer told us that they are pure. Well, what did he mean when they said they're pure? Pure that they don't catch tumah, or pure that they don't spread tumah? that they can't spread tumah. So then it makes a lot of sense. That Rabbi Loza held of Yosef ben Yoyezer that the liquid in the Beis Hamikdash can't spread tumah. That makes a lot of sense. Because if you remember, we said that Rabbi Loza holds that liquid can only spread tumah midrabanon. They can catch tumah minater, spread tumah midrabanon, so we can understand in the Beis Hamikdash they wanted to be makol and not spread tumah. But they can become tumah minater, shapir. That makes a lot of sense. And that they can't become tumah and can't spread tumah. Let's summarize very briefly. Yesterday we said 3 opinions regarding can liquid spread tumah. One man says yes, one says no, one man says depends if it's for food or for kelim. Rabbi Loza is the opinion that it can't spread tumah minater. It can't spread tumah. The fact that you're saying it can't spread tumah means they can catch tumah. Because if something can't catch tumah, it can't spread tumah. That's obvious. You don't need to say that. So Rabbi Loza obviously holds it can catch tumah. Can catch tumah. Then how can you say such thing? We have a brisa that he holds like Yosef ben Yoyezer, who told us that the liquids in the slaughterhouses of the Beis Hamikdash were always toy. Now, according to Shmuel, that says when he said toy, it only meant toy that they can't make other things tomei. So that's okay. Because then Yosef ben Yoyezer was never giving testimony about the liquids themselves. He agreed the liquids themselves can become tomei. The question is whether they can make other things tomei. And that fits very nicely with Veloz's shitta, that liquids can become tomei, not spread tomei. But according to Rav, that they don't get tomei either, then we have a contradiction in the words of Rabbi Loza. On one hand, he says they can catch them. On the other hand, he says they can't catch them. Says Omar Nachman by Yitzchak Achoda, meaning like this. When Meir was speaking yesterday, and he said liquids can catch tumah and can't spread tumah minater. The Brisa finishes off. B'chein Omar Rabbi Loza. So too, Rabbi Loza said. You could understand. So too, he said 2 statements from Meir. One is that liquids can catch tumah. Statement number 2, they can't spread tumah. So too Rabbi Loza said. Perhaps he only agreed with the second statement, that it can't spread tumah. But the first statement that they can catch tumah, who said that he even agreed with that? Says the Gemara. Achoda, he only meant on one statement. That means on the Meir's opinion, he only meant one of them. Okay, the Gemara. Well, Kedvorov Ka'oma. Bechin Omar Kedvorov. He said like his words to Nefishi. The words Dvorov means his words, plural, which is mashma more than one statement. He uses the word v'chein. V'chein means so too, kasha. So we have a kasha. So we leave this and we don't give a teretz. That means like this. We've got a question. Does Rabbi Loza hold that liquids can catch tumah or not? From the previous brisa, it seems like he can, because he says v'chein omar Rabbi Loza like Rameir that it can catch tumah. The question is, can they spread tumah? From the second brisa, he says like Yosef ben Yoyezer, it sounds like they can't even get tumah. So a contradiction in Rabbi Loza. Right. So far we've had 2 different arguments. Argument number 1 regarding spreading tumah between 3 different Tanoim. And then we had an argument Amoyim between Rav and Shmuel as to whether liquids can catch tumah in the Beis Hamikdash. Right? So now we're going to analyze this machlokes. Gufa. Rav Amar Dochin Mamish, the liquids in the slaughterhouse Beis Hamikdash were properly pure. Shmuel Amar Dochin Tamim Tumas Achem. They can only make other things. That's when they can become tom. Says the Gemara. Rav Omar Dochin Mamash. What is now? We're going to explain. How would you understand Machlokes Rav and Shmuel? Without the Gemara, you should be able to work it out yourself. Rav and Shmuel argue. Yosef ben Yoyezer made a statement that the liquid in the slaughterhouse of the Beis Hamikdash was Torah. And we have 2 opinions. Did it mean completely Torah that didn't become Tommy? Or did it mean Torah that it doesn't make other things Tommy? What's the Rav and Shmuel? What's the Yesod Machlokes Rav and Shmuel? Hey, what's the Svor? Well, no, what's the Svor?
Can't catch it, and therefore can't spread it.
No, you're going too deep. It's more simple than that. In the Beis Hamikdash, the Chachamim always want to be makel because we don't want to spread tumah in the Beis Hamikdash. We don't want to create more complications. Now, if the tumah is d'oraisa, Chachamim would never have said that. Okay, forget about it. The Beis Hamikdash will keep it tumah. If tumah is d'Rabbanan, so we can understand that they will say, okay, normally there's tumah, but in the Beis Hamikdash we'll ignore the normal list of d'Rabbanan. The machlokes Rav and Shmuel is like this: if you hold that liquids catch tumah min haTorah, so it's impossible to say that the liquids of the slaughterhouse Beis Hamikdash should be toy. How can they be toy? If normally they catch tumah min haTorah, the Chazal are not going to be oikadav min haTorah, not going to uproot something min haTorah and say the Beis Hamikdash should be toy. So therefore, of course, they can become tummy, only spreading tumah, which liquids is only midrabanon. So therefore, the Beis Hamikdash do a makom. But if you hold that even catching tumah, a liquid can never catch tumah minater, it can only catch tumah midrabanon. So in the Beis Hamikdash, we can say that they'll never catch tumah either. That means whatever's deraisa will be across the board. We're not going to be making Beis Hamikdash from deraisas. Whatever's derabanon, we can be making. So the machlekes Rav and Shmuel, which we said, is the liquids of the Beis Hamikdash and the Beis Mitzbachai in the slaughterhouse. Whether when we say the Torah not to catch tumah or Torah not to spread tumah, is dependent on the machlekes we mentioned previously. Do liquids become tumah min Torah or not? That's the question. Let's dig more inside. Rab Omar. Dochin mamish, they're completely pure that liquids can never become tumah min Torah. The maximum that ever become tumah is in Rabbanon. When did the Chacham make a gezeh about normal liquids? When it came to the Beis Hamikdash, they said, forget it. Since it only becomes tummy with Rabbanon, the Beis Hamikdash will make it. The Shmuel disagrees. He said, they can become tummy because he holds that liquids becoming tummy themselves. That is a din deraisa. The tummy achim to make other things tummy is only Rabbanon. When they made the gezeh was only in normal liquids, not in the liquids of the Beis Hamikdash. But the liquid of the tumah of them they do have. I'll explain again because we'll explain in such length. Rav holds that liquids minater cannot become tummy. Minater they can't become tummy, can't spread tumah. Since they can't become tummy, so therefore in the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore only midrabanon, the Chachamim said, the confused people when they see liquids not becoming tummy, they won't understand why. So midrabanon will make them tummy. Came to Beis Hamikdash, we went back to the deraisa tikadin and said they're not tummy altogether. But Shmuel holds no. Midraisa they can become tummy, but they can't spread tumah. So therefore, when it came to the Beis Hamikdash, we're going to be making like the deraisa, which is they can catch tumah but not spread tumah. So that's the machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Now we're going to try and prove one way or another. What we're trying to prove, can the liquid in the Beis Hamikdash become tummy or not? Can it become tummy or not? It says we're like this. Rav Huna bar China said to his son, when you go to a papa, Romile ask him the following question. Mi Omar Shmuel, did Shmuel say, did he really hold that liquid in the Beis Hamikdash becomes tummy, it can't spread tumah? Did he really hold such a thing? Kvi Kan, the pasuk says, the pasuk says clearly a statement: any meat that touches anything tummy shall not be eaten. Now, if you hold Shmuel that liquids can become tummy, how can it not spread tumah? The Torah itself says that if anything touches something tummy, that thing shall not be eaten. So if you've got liquids which, according to Shmuel, actually become tummy, because Shmuel holds that liquids can't catch tumah, how can it not spread tumah? It's going against the pasuk in the Torah. According to Rav, why according to Rav is it not a kasha? Oh, because Rav holds that they can't become tummy. Liquids can't become tummy. Since liquids can't become tummy, so I can understand they can't spread tumah. According to Shmuel, that says the liquids can become tummy, and he only says the liquids can't spread tumah. So how can you say such a thing? The pasuk clearly says if you touch something which is tummy, what happens? It becomes you can't eat it. So obviously, if liquids can become tummy, they obviously must be able to spread tumah. So he said, it's similar to Vi Bakodesh. We learned once that in the Beis Hamikdash, when it comes to Kodshim, you have Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, Revi, and then it stops. So think about it. Right? Let's say I'm tummy. I'm an Avatuma. How can I become an Avatuma? Touch a dead person, or I'm a Zov. If I touch a shirt, I'm not an Avatuma, I'm a Rishon. So either I'm a Zov or I touch a dead person. So if I touch a piece of meat in Beis Hamikdash, that piece of meat becomes a Rishon. Touches something else, a Sheni, a Shlishi, then Revi. If Revi touches something, what's the din? No, the Revi is possible. But if Revi touches something else, what's the din? Nothing. I'll ask you, wait a second, the Torah just said that you can't eat it. So the Revi, you said it's tummy. If the Revi is tummy, so why is it dispelled to a Chamishi?
It's the word they use.
What?
fact that you're using Tommy, it's confusing more into
You're touching onto the answer of the Gemara. But let's start with Rosh Hashanah's argument. Rosh Hashanah's argument says, just like you see that by Revi it is Tommy, it does make other things Tommy. Also by liquid it is Tommy, it does make other things Tommy. Says the Gemara, Rashi asks, he can't compare, which is what you're trying to say. Revi by Kiddush Ikri Tommy, it's not called Tommy, it's called Posso. Hi, Ikri Tommy, but liquid is called Tommy, Kasha. So nice, this is a Kasha on Shmuel's opinion. But we should always say, whenever it says what Kasha, it's got other Thurs, and I don't want to confuse things. I'll stick to what the Gemara says. The Pasuk says anything that touches, then you can't eat it. Because Shmuel holds that liquids are tummy. But if they touch something else, that thing's permitted to be eaten. That any...
Where do we meet the thing which touched it?
Again, basa, any meat which touches anything which is tummy, don't eat the meat. Don't eat the flesh or anything which touches something tummy. If liquids are tummy,
they can't pass on, then why can't you eat the meat?
That's right. It's actually quite a simple question. It takes time to have because it's so. You go overcome it. Pasuk says if you touch anything tummy, don't eat it. And you will hold that liquid comes tummy, and if it touches something else, you can't eat it. How can you hold such a thing? So again, let's get it clear. According to Shmuel, liquid can become tummy, can't spread tummy. According to Rav, liquids can't become tummy, can't spread tummy. So now, we try to prove it from the fact that it says, Basa Ashigah B'chol Torah Tummy. Shmuel says that's a kash on Shmuel. Another Toshma. If it's possible to have the pasuk in front of you, it is very, very worthwhile. The pasuk says, have you got it? No, yeah, I've got the pasuk. What? Some people have it by the side of the side of the Gemara. Many people also have it. Pasuk says like this. The pasuk really is actually talking. The pasuk is really talking about hechsha tumah. What's hechsha tumah? That for something to become tumah, it has to get wet. So let's read the pasuk. It's Vayikol Yud Aleph Lamed Dalet. Any food that can be eaten, of mine, which water goes over it, yitmo will become tummy, can become tummy. And any liquid that can be drunk, yitmo can become tummy. The first half of the pasuk is clearly teaching us the halacha that what? That hechsha tumah. In order for something to come tummy, it has to what? Come wet. The question is, what is the second half of the pasuk coming to tell you? The simple reading of the pasuk is coming to teach us another halacha. That the mashka can come tummy. Very good. Any liquid that can be drunk in any vessel, yitmo can become tummy. Is a kash on who? Rav. Because Rav said that liquids can become tummy. What are you going to say to me? That it's telling you a hechsha tumah, but it's not, because that's the first half of the pasuk.
It could be shver and shmuel if you read it in tummy.
Yeah, it could be shver and shmuel if you read it in tummy. But if you don't read it in tummy, it's not shver. What do you say? Okay, kasha, but it's still not changed.
That's how you drink.
Shmuel can become tummy, can't spread tumah. Yes, can't become tummy at all. Obviously, if you can't become tummy, can't spread it all. So, there's two. That's I'm going to say the answer to the words that he put out. That you could say that the pasuk is actually teaching us two halachas in hechsha tumah. One is like this: the first half of the pasuk is telling you that any liquid makes it wachshul kamatuma, and the second half of the pasuk is telling you that even liquid which came into a cup, that also can be machshul kamatuma, not just water in a stream, but also water in a cup. And then you read the pasuk like this: any food, which any water from a stream or river, yitma. And not only water from a stream, but also water, any liquid, even if it came in a cup and then they poured it onto your apple, yitma makes your apple potentially to become tummy. So what would you shout at me? Why would you think a havamina, that water which is in a cup, has any less capabilities of being machshir tumah than anything else? Why would the person need to tell me two halachas? One is any water plus water which is machshir. That's the kasha. So let's see the Gemara side. Toshima. It's the second line of the wide line. It says clearly yitmo, not like Rav. Rav says it can't become tummy. The pasuk says it can. And says more my yitmo hechshe. It means it makes it possible for the food to become tummy. Hechshe. That's the first half of the pasuk. That the first half of the pasuk teaches me that what? That once something becomes wet, it can become tummy. It says. And Answers the Gemara, Chad betlushin, Chad b'chubon. The whole pasuk is talking about hechsher tumah. And the first half of the pasuk is talking about a flowing stream, and the second half of the pasuk is talking about a vessel. Says Bovitzvichi, you need to tell us two psukim. One is that normal liquid from a stream can be machshel kabel tumah, and another thing is water in a cup machshel kabel tumah. By a cup, mishum dachshevinu. The fact that you put it into a cup showed that you care about the water, and the water is important for you. It's therefore can be machshel kabel tumah. And if an apple falls into a stream of water, where the water never had any significance to you, maybe it should be machshel kabel tumah. We said many times, machshel kabel tumah, you need to have a desire, you need to have a chashivus. If it fell into a stream, not. Because they're at the source, water at the source, that can be machshel kabel tumah. But water which is no longer at its source, maybe should be machshel kabel tumah. You need both. So again, so the Gemara said, both are by being machshel kabel tumah. Both halves of the pasuk are just teaching us the halacha that what? That liquid has the capabilities of making fruit muchshel kabel tumah. Both liquid which is in a stream and liquid which is in a cup have the ability to be machshel kabel tumah. But the pasuk is not talking at all about whether the water itself can become tummy or not. Yes? Another proof. Achmayon uboy mikveh mayim, a river, a stream, and a pit. Toy will be toy. A simple reading of the pasuk is telling you that a river is toy. Why is a river toy? Because it is still a flowing stream. But if you were to take water out of the river, what would it then be? Come Tommy is a kasha on. Right? Kasha on Rav. Rav says liquids can never come Tommy. Says what it says. Toy metumosoi. It means toy in the sense that they can make other things toy. That a river can make other things toy. If you dip in the river, you can become toy. If you dip, you can become. But it's not discussing whether it itself can become toy. According to Rav, liquids never become toy. Yeah, meaning the thing that you dip into the river, the keli, or the, I didn't catch the question, the keli or the person will become toy. Here's the person. So again, the Pashup Pshat in Pasuk would be that the water when it's in the stream is not tummy. Maybe if it comes out of the stream, it's tummy, it's kash on Rav. I said, well, no. You're misreading the pasuk. Yeah, that's right. Well, that's mikveh right. Now here it's very strange. The Rishus Asakash. So the Gemara goes back a line, asks a question on the previous question. We said before two things are machshel kabel tumah: water in a stream and water which is tlushin. What's water which is tlushin? What's water which is tlushin? Take it out. But tlushin machshel. The liquids in the slaughterhouse, which we said is blood and water. Not only are they toy, meaning that they don't become tummy, they're not machshir. So, for example, let's say you walk in Beis Mikdash for the apple, and you walk past the mashkin of the slaughterhouse, and the blood spurts out of a cow which is being shechted and goes all over your apple. Is your apple machshir kabel tumah?
No.
It is one of the 7 liquids. It should be machshir kabel tumah. Let's see what's this. What? It's not machshir. A special, we'll see in a minute why. The liquids of the base mitbechaya chazal was so mekol. Aleph the kavi come to me, base the kav, make things to me, and gimel. They're not even machshir the kabel tumah. Now you just said that what? That. Oh, wait a second. What's the kash over here? Oh. Because if you say that Tushin can be min hatayra, Chazal would not have taken it away in the base of Mikdash. Chazal, we said many times, were not limited to Raisa de Ketin. If you say Tushin are not machshim min hatayra, so we can understand that they would make such a thing, they're not machshim in the base of Mikdash either. But if Tushin is a machshim min hatayra, so then why is it not machshim in the base of Mikdash? The Chazal would not be oikad of min hatayra. And this is considered Tushin because it's coming out of the cup. Answers Gemara. We're discussing the blood, not the water, which is the base of the Chai, right? The halacha of hechsher was learned by water. Water is machshel kabel tumah. Now you all shouted, you said before that there are 7 liquids that are machshel. The Gemara Bemis asks the question elsewhere: how do we know all 7? And we have a special drasha, each one that we see that in some place is considered like water. Remember once we discussed it, that it says that that Shiur gave Sisra milk to drink, and it says they're drinking. It says that milk is also like water. So you see that the 7 liquids are all like water. But which blood is also like water? Because the pasuk says, pour the blood like water on the floor. It's talking about normal shechita of a normal animal. Right? That normally in the base of Mikdash you have to catch the blood and speak it from the Mizbeach. But if you shecht in your back garden a cow, then you don't need to catch the blood and put it on the Mizbeach. So it's clear from the pasuk that blood which is spilt away, that has the din of water. But blood which needs to be caught and put on the Mizbeach does not have the din of water. So therefore, the reason why the blood of the slaughterhouse was not machshir was nothing to do with exer d'Rabbanan. It was because the Torah itself says only that which is spilled like water is machshir. Dam shenishbach kamayim machshir. Blood which is spilled like water is machshir. Top of this animal base. Dam shenishbach kamayim. Blood which is not spilled like water in a machshir. It's not machshir. Right. Right. So therefore, blood which is in the kodshim blood, which is not spilled like water, because you need to put on the mizbeach. So therefore, it's not going to din of water. It's not machshir.
Why if it spills, if it's not caught?
Oh, maybe you're going to ask next. Maskeflav shobami. Haridama tamsis. This machgamai ben machshir. The halacha is that when you shecht an animal, there's spurting of blood, and that's the blood you have to catch to pour on the mizbeach. And then afterwards, there's blood which just comes out. It's squeezed. It comes away. The death of trickles out. The death of the animal occurs in the first squirts, not in the trickling away. Now that blood, what's the din? Can you put it on the mizbeach? Nope, because it's not good for zrika. So that blood, what's its din? It's spilled like water. If it's spilled like water, so it should be like water. It should be machshir. Now in the slaughterhouse, the Beis Hamikdash, you're going to have all kinds of blood. You're going to have the first blood and the second blood. How can this brisa tell us that the blood of the Beis Mikdash is never machshir l'kabel tumah? What means never machshir l'kabel tumah? It depends which blood. If it's the first blood, okay, I agree with you, because then the day it's not nishbach kamam, you have to put on this beach. But if it's the latter water blood, which is just trickling out, which is not dama nefesh, it's not blood of the soul, which you can't use on this beach, and if you're going to have to pour it out, so therefore it should be machshir. So how can you tell me that if I'm walking around with an apple in the basement b'chaya and blood comes on it, don't worry, it's not machshir. Well, wait a second, it depends which blood it is. If it's the first blood, I agree with you, but what about the second blood? What about damatamsis? Omalei Rabzeira Hanach damatamsis. Damatamsis is never machshir. It is never machshir. Damatamsis is never machshir. So the 7 liquids that are machshir, one of the 7 liquids is blood. Only blood, which is the first squirting. Why? Kibla minei Rav Shmuel Ba'ani learned from him the reasoning. The Omar Rachmana, the Torah says, "Rak chazak bilta achol adam, ki hadam hu nefesh." Blood is the soul, meaning dam shenefesh yotzei bo kol dam, dam she'eina nefesh yotzei bo ina kol dam. What is blood? Blood is the first spurt. Blood which causes the death, that is blood. But blood which is not death is not called blood, and therefore it is never machshir. So when you're walking the Beis Hamikdash with an apple and blood squirts, then it will never be machshir l'kabel tumah. Why? If it's the first squirt of the blood, it's not machshir l'kabel tumah. Why not?
Because
it's not nishvach kamayim. Because what are you going to do with it? Put on his beach. So if it's not nishvach kamayim, so it's not machshir. The latter blood is never machshir even by chulin. And when did we say that blood is machshir and not in the Beis Hamikdash? It's only the first blood. So Shash says over here, from here we see that whenever we talk about the word blood, we're talking about the very first blood. There's a very beautiful sefer called Chashuki Chemed, Kshmak sefer. The Torah says they have to find something a bit lighter, because this topic is not the easiest. If you see your friend being harmed, you're not allowed to stand by idly. You have to do to save him. What happens if you see something happening to your friend where he's not going to get killed? He's only going to get beaten and bleed a little bit. Is there a chiyuv to go to his help? Now, if you say blood is all kinds of blood, so he's going to bleed. If he's going to bleed, so you've got a chiyuv. If you say dam is only dam and nefesh, therefore if he's going to get beaten, I can be potter because he's not going to be dam ve'echom. What would you say? It's an interesting shaila he asks. Oh, but then you're coming up with a new chiyuv, not the chiyuv le'samad dam ve'echom. Le'samad dam ve'echom is the chiyuv. So he said,
Is he down in that case?
how do you, let's say you know.
Because it could become dam and nefesh. first
Let's
part,
say
it
you
could
know.
eventually-
Let's say you know.
It'll be too late. If somebody gets a macro, starts bleeding,
I hear.
And it gets-
I'll try.
how do you?
That's how you know it. So it's interesting. Satoshi obviously is going to say that you need to say what he says because it makes a Rambam. But the Torah says the mitzvah Shuvah Saveda. Again, it's a bit like you actually. The Torah says that if you lose a watch, I've got a chiv to help you find it. He says if a watch, which is not your own personal thing, the Torah says I have to do my best to look after it. The Torah says your own comfort is thing. There's a lot of lomdus about it because what? Yes, okay. The shine is better. Tol Shabbat. So again, so we're finished now. We're carrying on with this question. What's the question? The question is, can blood become Tomei in the Beis Hamikdash or not? Rav holds not.
No.
Rav holds there's no such thing as Tomei in the Beis Hamikdash. And according to Rav, you have a very big question why we celebrate Chanukah. According to Shmuel,
Yes.
very good. You can't get Tomei, can't pass it on. Tosh, I always feel that if you get the principles clear and people then talk about liquids, even if you don't remember every shak v'tayah, it's very important to have these sudas clear. It's well from knowledge. Toshba, dam shenitma, blood that became tummy. V'zolka b'shigig, you sprinkled it on his back by mistake. Hutza, you have done hutza. The korban is good, and you've been yoytz. Let's say I've been a korban shlomim, and I asked Tali to do zvika. And what happens is, in between, the blood becomes tummy, and he does zvika, which he shouldn't have because it was tummy. The blood, I've been yoytz in my korban. But amazing, if he knew it was tummy, and he went and still sprinkled it, like hutza, I need to bring another korban. I'll ask you, according to Rav, how can it possible become tummy? When in the world does blood become tummy? Rav holds blood never becomes tummy. It's a kash on Rav. Answers more with Rabbono. Came tummy with Rabbono. No, that's a different question. Again,
That's just how you did it.
that's how you did the Zvika. We're not discussing that. That's another question. You did the Zvika for Shogeg B'Mezid to make the question when the Kol is Yotza. Now, how did the blood ever become tummy? According to Rav, there's no such thing as liquid becoming tummy. Oh, Sigmor says Midrabbanon. It's still not good enough because, as you pointed out, we said on Amud Aleph that Yosef ben Yezer told us that it never becomes tummy. This price doesn't fit in with him because he indeed holds that what happened, that they took away tummy the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, again, Rav holds there's no such thing as tummy by liquids. So therefore, he's got a problem with this price. So what he has like this, Yosef ben Yezer, that he held that not only there's no tummy device, there's no tummy Rabbanon. Rav held there's no tumah deraisa, there is tumah derabbanon, and this price is going not like Yosef ben Yezer that there is tumah derabbanon. Toshima, very, very similar question. Amatzitz maratza. The Torah says that by wearing the tzitz, the kohen is maratza on all the korbanos. Because the pasuk said like this: "V'nosa anas avina kodshim," he carries the sin with the tzitz. So what is it maratza? So Rashi gives big avichos that we're eliminating many things. It's not maratza when, for example, the person bought a korban which was stolen, or for example, a korban which was not balmum. We'll see all the different things. The vice over here only eliminates some of them. So what is a maratz? Al adam on blood, bala basa on flesh, bala chilev on fat, shenitmo that became tummy, which is straight away is a kasha on Rab, because it says that blood became tummy. But let's finish off the price. So bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid, bein b'unis, bein b'rotzim, bein b'yochid, bein b'tzibur. Any kind of tumah, whether it's shogeg, mezid, unis, rotzim, yochid, tzibur, the tzitz is maratza. Rashi points out for the emes, Mezid and Watson, he says exactly the same thing. There's no difference between Mezid and Watson. Shogeg is by mistake. Mezid is on purpose. Oinas means you were forced. It's even less than Shogeg. That literally you didn't have any choice. A guy held your hand and made it tummy. Shogeg is by mistake, it's a tummy. But Watson is where you did it by desire. He says there's only really three categories. It's just once you say Shogeg, the normal thing to say is Shogeg means it Oinas Watson. Rotzin and Mezid is the same, but the counterpart of Shogeg is Mezid, the counterpart of Oinus is Rotzin. Okay. So the Meister stated before, it says clearly that what? That blood can become tummy. Answer is not the same answer. Midrabanon. Let's finish up with Rabbanon. That we're talking about tummy Rabbanon because the rice going to come tummy. And another case who says that what? That Midrabanon there's no such thing. What did you want to ask? No, there's a Torah is coming to let's say fat became tummy or meat became tummy. The Torah just says that tzitz atones for something that went wrong. The Brisa suggests what could have gone wrong. The blood became tummy. According to Rabbi Yosef ben Yezer, it means the fat became tummy, not the blood became tummy. If it's taking the bone of pigor, what is pigor? When you thought of going to eat at the wrong time, that's a korban which actually left to back when the only thing it atones for is for tumah, which was permitted in the tzibur by a common Pesach by the tzibur. My love tumah stam is the price of not saying that if blood became tomei, the korban is the tzitz is mirat. It's referring to the tumah of the kaimatz of the. If you take a korban mincha, you have to put the kaimatz on the mizbeach. If that became tomei, the tzitz mirat. So why did the Gemara talk about kaimatz? Let's say not what talk about. Let's say the meat. The answer is no, because the answer is because there has to be something which is meratza, something which makes the korban good. Blood is something which is machshir. If you don't do zvika, you don't have a korban. If you don't bring the kaimatz, you don't have a mincha. But the other parts of the korban are less important. We're trying to find something important. Now we're starting a new topic. We're continuing with this topic as two liquids become tummy or not. But we're going to bring a raya from Chagai Hanavi. Fascinating thing. When they built the second Beis Hamikdash, there were not many Nevi'im left, unfortunately. Chagiz Chamalach were the last two Nevi'im. And Klal Yisrael came from Babel, and unfortunately they weren't so great. Some of them had even married non-Jewish women, etc. They got a lot of Musar Rushes. So Chagai, before he let the Kohanim do the Avodah of the Beis Hamikdash, what did he do? What would you do before you let Kohanim? Besides making sure the Kohanim, for him, very good, made it for him. He did it for him. Double two questions he asked them. We'll see later whether they got answers right or wrong. We'll have to discuss the questions, and we'll see from these questions a raya against what? So I have to tell you, it's interesting. It could be right. I didn't see the quote it, so you should really quote it. Tell the article. If you haven't learned, he writes that the people think that in the second English people didn't learn Torah. So it's a big mistake. He brings a raya from Gemara. What happened was, he says, Ragbo, you see that they were discussing delicate issues of Tumah V'Tara. So you see that they did learn. The Torah just writes it very, very harshly, even minor infringements. That's what he writes. That means the Torah sometimes the Navi will put as if they were terrible people, even though they weren't that bad. Not going to go on in a minute. Well, once we had a discussion about this, is that the big first Zionists were total absolute Rishonim. So you can say that they justified it, some of the Mizrahi, that also the people who went up to the second Beis Hamikdash weren't that good. The reality is you can't compare. These people were people that are ready to marry out, etc. These people came to the second Beis Hamikdash, they had problems, they did things wrong, but nothing, they knew Hilchas Tumah V'Tara, which we struggle with. What? No, but they were trying to justify that just like the second Beis Hamikdash, the people that went up first were not so good also. Okay. So Shema. So this is the question he asked them. Hey, and behold, Yisa ish B'sar Kodesh. The word B'sar Kodesh here does not mean a korban, it means a sheretz. Now, why does B'sar Kodesh mean a sheretz? If you do Chumash Rashi, you should know this. Why does B'sar Kodesh mean a sheretz? Rashi says the word Kodesh just means something forbidden. Forbidden comes sometimes. Atika v'ki kedashtich. Kedashtich sometimes mean Aya Kadeshi B'Naim. The word Kodesh just means something which is this week's parsha. Kadesha means something which is forbidden, off-put, separate. What? Set aside. No, that's not okay. B'sar Kodesh. Hektish also. So B'sar Kodesh, if a person carries a sheretz, b'chnaf bigdoi in his cloak, and the piece of bread touches the sheretz, that's the dead mouse, the piece of bread touches it. So what's the sheretz, by the way? Av. The loaf of bread now is what? Vish. The loaf of bread touched a cooked pot. What's the cooked pot? Sheni. The cooked pot touched wine, the wine is a shlishi. Shemen, and that wine touched. No, to a hectare, it's about kodesh, it's about karbonos. The yain became a shlishi. Vel shemen, revi. And Rashi says, "Vel kol ma'achol" doesn't mean and then he touched something else. That'd be chamishi. Rather, vel kol ma'achol or any other food, either oil or any other food. Hayigdosh, is it forbidden or not? Yigdosh again is asking, is it forbidden? Not is it kodesh? Is it forbidden? The Kohanim said, no, it's not forbidden. Top of Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. V'omar Rav, ishtabish Kohani, top of Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. The Kohanim got it wrong. One question, they got it wrong. Why did they get it wrong? Why you should say to me? No. They said it's toy. They were wrong. It is Tommy. Why is it Tommy? You should have worked out yourself. Revi back kodesh is also. Again, there was a sheretz in my cloak, a loaf of bread. The sheretz you said right correct. It was a av. The loaf of bread was a rishon. It touched a pot cooked food as a sheni. Wine is a shlishi. Shemen is a revi. The shemen is also. Why is it also? Because shemen back kodesh is also. So Rav said the Kohanim got it wrong. Now the problem is you Rav. Oh, Mashki can't become Tommy. So therefore, it never came in Revi because in their process it touched the oil wanted to be a shlishi. That's very good. So Rav Leshitose is very puzzling. How can you say he got it wrong? In fact, answers the Gemara. Midi utayme el Rav. Rav mashke based with bechaya toni and mashke based with bechaya metam. Meaning that we're going to have an argument whether the lashon is based with bechaya or based with bechaya. Mitbechaya is the slaughterhouse. As you said earlier, the slaughterhouse has two main liquids, blood and water. Bein mitbechaya means the house of the Mizbeach. On the Mizbeach, besides for blood and water, there was also oil and wine, because you'd pour oil and wine on the Mizbeach. The question is, when the Chazal said there should be no tumah in the Beis HaMikdash, did they limit the tumah to the place of the slaughterhouse or the place of the Mizbeach? Rav holds they only permitted the tumah in the slaughterhouse, but the liquids that go on the mizbeach can become tummy. So therefore, in this equation, which things we talk about, wine and oil, they never mentioned blood and water. So therefore, according to Rav, wine and oil can become tummy, and therefore it is a revi, and therefore the Kohanim were wrong by saying that it's not tummy. So now we have another machlokes, by the way. We had one machlokes tanoim where the liquid which becomes tummy can spread tumah. We had 3 opinions yesterday, which we discussed a bit today. Then we had Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Rav holds that liquids can never become tummy. Shmuel says they can't spread tumah. And now we have a Machlokes regarding which liquids are we discussing. Till now we're discussing blood and water. We'll have an opinion that the same halacha applies to oil and wine. And we have another shitta that no, only blood and water. So this heta, which again, the Chazal did not want tumah in the Beis HaMikdash. So they said that liquids Beis HaMikdash don't become tummy. Which liquids do they say don't become tummy? According to Rav, only blood and water. But wine and oil can become tummy. There'll be another mandama that says Beimid Bechaya, the place of the Mizbeach. Any liquids that go on the Mizbeach can never become tummy. Which liquids go on the Mizbeach? All of them. Wine, oil, blood, water. So none of them can become tummy. And according to him, would this become tummy over here in that story? No. And then we have a major problem. What was Chagai asking the Kohanim, and what was the mistake of the Kohanim? And that question we'll answer tomorrow, Mr. Shem. Very good, okay. Maybe you didn't make a mistake, very good. Yes, there's someone even more maker than Rav, because Rav only said it by Bechai,